Hello again, everyone. I'm Joe Longinusa, welcoming you to another edition of Next on the Tee with Chris-Mascaro, the show where industry leaders, golf professionals, and legends all come and discuss the great game we love so much. So without further ado, let's turn it over to our host to tell us who's next on the tee. Chris, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good morning and Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you for coming back and joining me this morning on Next on the Tee. We know you've got a lot of choices for shows and podcasts to listen to, and we really appreciate the fact that you've chosen Next on the Tee to be one of them. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and it's certainly a chilly start to our day here in Atlanta, and by the looks of the weather map, that warmer than normal December is definitely in the rear view, and winter has found all of us. We have a couple of great things today that's going to help warm up your morning. The best of those things is our good friend, 2003 PGA champion, Shaun Micheel. He's back with me to kick off the new year. One of our biggest blessings here Next on the Tee in 2015 was getting to know Shaun on a personal and a professional level. Shaun let us into his life and really gave us some great insights into what it was like before and after winning the 2003 PGA Championship. We also talked about his playing record, and I'll go through that again when he joins me here in just a few moments. I think it's important to point out all that he's accomplished so far to set the record straight that he was one of the top players in the game for the majority of the first part of the decade of the 2000s. So, you know, it's a new year. It's going to be filled with all kinds of promise for all of us. We'll chat about Shaun's plans for 2016. We'll talk about new equipment and the golf ball. Maybe, you know, returning to something old like the bullseye putter, perhaps, you know, that Shaun took a look at in the fourth quarter of last year, plus something new like the holder putter. And if you're not familiar with the holder putter, go check it out online at holdergolf.com. Great new friends of ours, a wonderful idea and a wonderful change to the traditional putter. So take a look at it. Again, it's called the holder putter, and you can find them online at holdergolf.com. Anyway, Shaun's going to join me here in just a few moments. And if that doesn't warm up your morning, well, our new friends over at Aroma Ridge sure can. They offer an array of the finest mountain-grown gourmet coffees. Their secret is hand-selected beans from a variety of coffee-producing countries roasted to perfection by their very own roast master, and it's done in small batches for an even more, refreshing and cleaner roast. Their coffees are roasted specifically for you, folks, and I mean that, specifically for you. And flavored, if you like flavored coffees, they can even mix and match so you can create your own flavor. So great stuff. And not only do they have great coffees, but they are fantastic people as well. You're not going to find a better tasting coffee or a better group of people to deal with anywhere on the planet than at Aroma Ridge. So please check them out online at aromaridge.com. All right, folks, Next on the Tee is brought to you today and every week by our friends over at the French Lick Resort up in French Lick, Indiana. Folks, you want to talk about a spectacular resort to both play golf and to just relax and enjoy yourself? Well, there isn't a better place anywhere on the planet than at the French Lick Resort. Go to FrenchLick.com to see for yourself, but let's hear a word from our friends over there.
Now's the time to plan that golf getaway you've been dreaming about at French Lick Resort. We have new Golf Academy packages for 2016, guaranteed to take your game to the next level. Try our one-day Quick Fix Academy for golf emergencies. For more in-depth learning, try the Game Changer, designed to make you a better player. Our staff professionals are ready to work with you at French Lick Resort. Did you know there's only one place in the country that you can play courses designed by two members of the World Golf Hall of Fame on the same property? The Pete Dye and Donald Ross courses at French Lick Resort make us an ultimate golf destination for 2016. Check out the Ultimate Golf Package, the Hall of Fame Package, and other great offerings at FrenchLick.com. Let 2016 be that year you finally take your dream golf getaway at French Lick Resort. Play the courses champions play.
It's a spectacular place, my friends. I had the privilege of taking my family there last June, and we're really looking forward to going back. The French Lick Resort needs to be on your list of places to stay and play. And oh, by the way, my friends, they have a casino on the property as well. For more information and to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. I also want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Allen Edmonds, maker of top-quality made-in-the-USA shoes. Folks, the shoes of great leaders, from the Oval Office to corner offices to stage and screen and promising cubicles all around the country, are a part of what make people successful. The right footwear is important on the carpets and the hardwood floors of our global economy. Get it right with made-in-the-USA quality and value from Allen Edmonds. Allen Edmonds is an American original. They've been making shoes right up there in Wisconsin since 1922. They currently have a winter clearance sale going on right now. Some styles are up to 40% off. Go see how to return to work in style. Check it out online, allenedmonds.com. And every week here, folks, on Next on the Tee, we like to kick off the show by saluting the brave men and women who are serving in every branch of our military. We want to thank all of you for the daily sacrifices that you and your families make to keep our freedoms and our liberties protected. We also want to thank our veterans for all you've done for us over the years. It's through your strength and your efforts that our way of life is even possible. Our sincere thanks as well to Sean Cruz and the wonderful folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It's an honor for us to have Next on the Tee be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. Also want to remind our veterans listening in out there, be sure to check out globalvoiceforveterans.org, a great site with news and articles and a wealth of information specifically designed for our veterans out there. I'm sure you're going to find it both interesting and beneficial for you. Please check out globalvoiceforveterans.org and bookmark it. You're going to be glad you're checking out that site on a weekly basis. All right, now back with me to answer more of your questions on the French Lick Resort guest line is our friend and 2003 PGA champion, Shaun Micheel. I want to remind everyone about Shaun's accomplishments in the early part of the 2000s before injuries sort of sidetracked Shaun's career a little bit. Because, I believe Shaun is one of the most underrated players of the 2000s. And based on the comments I've been seeing online over the last couple of months, several of you do as well. From 2000 to 2007, we all know that he won the 2003 PGA Championship at Oak Hill. 3 years later, at the 2006 PGA Championship up in Medina, he finished second to Tiger Woods. He had a third-place finish in 2002, so it's not like he came out, from nowhere to win the 2003 PGA Championship, as some members of the media would have you believe. In all, over an 8-year stretch, he had 17 top 10 finishes, 48 top 25s, and he won over $7.3 million. And let's not forget that he came back from injury in 2010 and had 3 more top 10 finishes, 5 top 25s, and won over $1 million in that season. So far, Shaun is way more than a one-hit wonder, like I say, some media members have kind of thrown out there. There weren't many players better than Shaun from 2002 to 2010, and if it wasn't for Tiger Woods, Shaun would be a two-time major champion. So I want to make sure that I'm setting the record straight, and you guys remember all the great things that Shaun accomplished in the early part of the 2000s, and most of all, I'm thrilled that he's back with me to kick off this new year on Next on the Tee. Good morning, Shaun. Happy New Year, my friend.
Oh, hey, Chris. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Thank you. So, Shaun, like I said, it's a new year. We've got a world of hope out there for all of us for what 2016 can bring. It's sort of a fresh start for all of us. Some of the things that you and I haven't touched on yet, and we've touched on a lot about your playing career and things on and off the course. But one of the things I thought we'd start off this year talking about is new equipment. Maybe Santa left us a new driver, maybe a new set of fairway metals or a new set of irons under the tree. So as we look forward to, 2016 and perhaps looking at, the new things and a new year, let's talk about clubs. If you're looking at a new driver, for instance, let's start there. If you got a new driver, what are you evaluating whether you're in a simulator, Shaun, or you're just hitting balls out on the range, or maybe you're out in a practice round or on your home course? What are you looking for from a new driver to decide, this thing is going to work well for me?
Well, I think it's different for a tour pro versus, your everyday club player. The pros get tied up in contracts and those types of things, and so as far as people, seeing things under the tree, Christmas tree, they're hard. Tell you what, golf clubs are hard to buy for people. Because for me, I enjoy, I like to be able to look down at the golf club and see a nice shape. It's got to look good behind the ball, or I won't even hit it. You could tell me it's the best driver that's out there, and if it doesn't look good to me, I probably won't even give it a try. But You know, the first things that I do is, you know, I make sure that everything's measured right. You know, I got the same lengths. I mean, I play a little bit short. You know, my driver is finished, which means it's gripped at 44.5. Most guys are 45, even 45.5 inches long. So that's the first thing I'll do. All those drivers are so adjustable anymore. I'm pretty particular about that as well. Once I find a setting, you know, I never change it. I don't change it for the conditions. It takes me long enough to try to figure out how to hit it with one setting. So, you know, I don't mess around with it too much. But for people out there, it's you know, getting fit properly. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest advancements in technology is the ability to fit people to their equipment now. The technology is so great with the Doppler radar systems that are out there. There's different companies that are making those. You know, I use TrackMan here in Tennessee. And so it gives you a pretty good idea of kind of what's happening in your swing speed and stuff like that. You know, so for people that are getting new drivers, the great thing about them is they are adjustable. The drivers of old, you know, you'd go out and buy a driver, and that's what it was. You know, and so now people can feel a little bit more confident in just buying a driver for their friends or loved ones or whatever, and be confident that they can adjust it to kind of suit their eye and to suit their swing. So, you know, it's always fun to get a new equipment, especially as the new year rolls around. And, you know, the technology has been moving at such a quick pace over the last 10 to 15 years. I think that's slowed down a little bit. I think that companies like TaylorMade and Callaway, as great as they are at designing things, they may not be the greatest marketers. They just push this equipment, you know, on you. And even for tour players, I mean, they want you out there in the latest and greatest stuff. But, you know, getting new equipment is exciting for everybody.
But you know, to your point a moment ago, Shaun, you talk about your driver is about an inch shorter maybe than other folks. What's the difference? What in that inch? What does that do? You know, whether it's, you know, longer for somebody else or your preference being a little bit shorter. What difference does that 1 inch make? Well,
I mean, I'm an inch longer than I was in college. I mean, I think the gold standard back in my day of collegiate golf and even the tour life was a 43.5-inch driver. And you know, Tiger Woods certainly, you know, his driver was 43.5, and he had an X100 shaft in it, which is what I used. And then as the graphites came, you know, you really needed to get a longer shaft to get a little bit more speed through the ball, which is what it all is. I mean, the longer the club, the more speed and leverage that you can create. And there's a lot more factors in it than just that. But I'm not any taller than I was 10, 15 years ago. And when you get a longer driver, it forces you to stand farther away from the ball. And it gives you a little bit more rounder swing. And sure, you can work on that and you can get used to it. But when you're used to looking at a ball in a certain spot in your swing and in your stance, and you vary that by a quarter inch to half inch, that's a lot. You know, and so I've just stayed the same way. I know that, you know, Jack Nicklaus, we've played quite a bit of golf together. He still, even to this day, uses the same setup in his clubs that he's used his entire career. So he's got weak lofts. He's probably at 50-degree pitch and wedge. Now it's a 47-degree pitch and wedge. So, you know, his clubs are the same length. I mean, you haven't grown any taller. Why would you want to use longer clubs? I mean, that's just the way I look at it. And I kind of set in my ways a little bit. But the technology didn't change so quickly, you know, when I was first getting on tour. And now these kids are kind of getting bombarded with a lot of stuff, different shafts and components and, you know, different head styles, different materials, you know. But, you know, again, for me personally, and I've actually gone a little bit longer. I've gone all the way up to 45 inches, but I don't really like the way it feels because I like my clubs to be more upright. And if I got the club in an upright setting and I'm standing too far away from it, it just looks like I'm going to hit a big duck hook. So I counter that by going back to a shorter club so I can stand a little bit closer to it. So, you know, my lofts and stuff and my irons are are probably right on par with a lot of them today. I don't use it. My pitching wedge is, I think it's 48, so it's even probably a little weak to the way some of these guys are hitting. I mean, look, these guys are hitting pitching wedge 150, 155 yards, and it's so people are wondering, what's going on with technology, and that's a lot of it. But you got to be careful with that because, again, as I said, it changes your perspective. When you go to longer clubs or shorter clubs, and when you play as long as I have, and you get used to seeing a ball in a certain position, certain place in your stance, it changes it dramatically, even a quarter to a half inch.
And when you're in the simulator or you're out practicing, especially like I say, we're starting off here talking about drivers. Is there a sound or a particular number in the simulator that from a sound perspective, is something you're trying to hear, or is there a particular number you're looking for in the simulator, whether it's rotation, backspin, whatever it is, to really say, what, hey, this fits me?
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, it's really a long story, I suppose. But for me, I hit pretty level, maybe down just slightly. And so when you go into these simulators, and you start searching for numbers, whether it's you want to hit up on it 2 degrees and you want to put 2,000 spin. You start chasing those numbers, your golf swing, you're just throwing it completely out the window. And, you're having to change your golf swing to kind of fit the numbers that are, quote-unquote ideal. Certainly technology's shown that if you hit up on the ball and you got less spin, you got a, 13, 14 launch with no spin, it's going to go a long way. But you don't have any spin on it, you can't control the ball. And, the one thing about today's balls and everything, they pretty much go straight. So unless you have a serious in to out swing path, and you're not going to be blocking, pretty much everything you hit's going to be inside the tree line. And let's face it, the accuracy on the PGA Tour has the percentages have gone way down. It hasn't affected play one bit because the golf courses are pretty much the same length. They've gotten a little bit longer. Depending on where you play. But the balls go so far now that if I'm in the rough with a 9-iron or 8-iron, it's better than, having 2 clubs shorter in, than being in the fairway. So I think accuracy has been given up. You don't see anybody advertising drivers like TaylorMade advertises the number 1 driver in golf. You don't see them advertising with them. We're the most accurate driver in golf. You don't see that. We're the longest driver. We're the longest ball. We're the longest this. You don't see we're the most accurate. I've not seen it. You got to be careful chasing numbers. And look, if your swing, I've been doing this a long, long time. So there's no reason at my age, almost 47 here in a couple of days, to start reinventing the wheel. If you've got some swing flaws, if you're swinging down on it too much with your driver, it's time to kind of reassess and do some drills and work with somebody to maybe fix some of those things to alleviate. But for me, my swing is what it is. It's been pretty successful, and I know that there are things that I can do to get the ball further, and I do those. I move the ball up a little bit. I close my stance a little bit if I want to hit it a little bit further. But believe me, I will have practiced that before I just pull it out in competition. Be very careful of chasing numbers. Each driver is can be set up a little bit differently. The center of gravity is higher or lower, which creates more or less spin, depending on where you hit it on the face. The most important thing about driver is making solid contact. And once you can do that, then you can kind of figure out how to adjust the driver to kind of fit you. But until you make consistent contact in the center of the face, you're kind of wasting your time by, spending a lot of time, chasing numbers.
And we'll talk about the golf ball here in a minute, and it's something that you've alluded to in the past when we've talked, Shaun. But to the point you just make is, since the golf ball does fly straighter than it probably ever has, Does it just become down with the driver? Is distance everything? Is that all that matters at this point?
I think so. I know that sure seems to be the case. Look, not every golf course. I mean, you still have the old courses like Hilton Head that stand up to the test of time because most of the guys are having to hit from the same position in the fairway. So it takes the advantage of the long ball hitter away because they'd be driving it through the dog legs. And so then it becomes kind of a second shot golf course and then a kind of a more of a putting and a more of a strategic type of golf. But distance has always been something that everybody has tried to achieve. And, we all want to hit it further. But at the end of the day, I've always kind of felt like the most important stat was the greens and regulation stat and giving yourself an opportunity to make birdies. And if that means you're hitting a 5-iron in versus a 6 or 7-iron, so be it. But the guys out there today, they're fit. They're all getting so big. Their swings are sound. They got a lot of speed through the ball. So the majority of the guys are getting it out there plenty far. But it certainly makes these courses kind of obsolete in ways. Bubba Watson and J.B. Holmes, they hit it so far that if they're on at all with their putting game, they're going to be there, week in, week out. And then at the end of the day, it is about the guy that makes the most putts. So the putting stat is, kind of trumps all else, I guess. But when you've got wedges and irons in your green, you're going to get a lot of opportunities for birdies. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, I mean, distance really it sets the stage for everything else. It certainly makes the game a lot easier when you're hitting it straight and you're hitting a long way. And you see those same guys week in and week out that they're always there in contention. And that's the thing with the drivers too, is I think that you don't see a lot of you see a few wayward shots, but for the most part, the ball flies pretty consistently. And guys might miss one off the tee, every once in a while, but for the most part, the guys are in between the trees and have access to the green on the second shot.
So, Shaun, at this point in your career, to your point about, length and distance, are you measuring yourself and the distance you hit the ball against guys, that are smashing it out? I mean, Bubba Watsons and the Jason Days of the world, they're hitting the ball, well in excess of, 300 yards. Rory McIlroy in the 325s. Are you measuring, how well you're going to be able to compete and how well, you're hitting the ball against those guys? Or do you have a guy, and as you mentioned a moment ago, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, but, happy birthday a little bit earlier, birthday being on January 5th. But are you do you have a sort of an eye on the Champions Tour and the distance that those guys are hitting so you know how you're going to measure up when you're ready to compete, against that group of players?
Well, yeah, I mean, all the above, really. I mean, going back to comparing myself to others, I think I did that for a long time. I think that's only natural. But where I compare myself, where I am now is I compare myself to where I was last year or even a couple of years earlier. And certainly I'm not getting to play as much. But the tournaments that I've played, I've played before. So I know kind of where I was hitting. I knew what clubs I had into the greens. And, but I kind of gave up comparing myself to the guys like Rory McIlroy a long time ago. I mean, last year at Valhalla, I remember I was paired with the Club Pro champion Michael Block and Colin Montgomery, and we were playing 16, and it's a dogleg right. It was wet. It's kind of a miserable week, actually. And I think I outdrove those guys like 15 yards or 20 yards maybe. And I had 3-iron into the green, and I went back later that day, and I was watching Rory McIlroy. He had like 7-iron into this green, and he just took it straight right over the trees, and it just kind of made me chuckle. Just having a 3-iron versus a 7-iron, and that's a huge distance to give up to try to compete, even though it's just one hole. I mean, that's how these guys consistently play. But as far as the Champions Tour, I've not played I think I've played a lot of golf with the guys that are just now getting onto the tour, and they're all getting it out there pretty long. And I think you're going to see that tour's driving distance get longer and longer. Look, Kenny Perry's always hit it long, but I've not played a lot of golf with those guys in a while. So it's I look at Lauren Roberts. Lauren lives here in Memphis, and now he's close to 60 years old of age now. So he's kind of come back quite a bit, but still got really good accuracy. So I'll worry about that in a couple of years. But for right now, I think it's, as long as I can keep up my flexibility, I hit the ball far enough. I always focused really on my iron game, and I probably need to spend a little bit more time on my putting game. But that was hitting my irons was always something that I kind of prided myself on. I felt like I was a pretty good ball striker and everything. And distance, even though I felt like I hit it far, I didn't really have the swing that produced a lot of distance. I kind of was taught early on to kind of swing kind of within myself, and certainly if you found me in the trees, it's probably because I tried something that I shouldn't have been trying. But these guys today, they just generate so much speed, and a lot of it is just the combination of things that I've already mentioned with, the fitness and the technology and just the overall speed and technology with shafts and titanium heads and the golf ball. So there's a lot of things that create distance, that's passed me by, I suppose.
And Shaun, you mentioned flexibility, and you talked about how fit these guys are now, a little bit ago. And guys on the regular tour now are in tremendous shape. You look at, Jason Day and Rory McIlroy, and those guys could be regularly on the cover of Men's Health magazine or Muscle and Fitness. And it's really not just the young guys. I mean, Bernhard Langer is in tremendous shape for a guy who's 58 years old. Do you look at what those guys are doing to keep fit or to get themselves in such great shape, and are you adapting? Are you looking at that sort of thing for how you need to prepare your body to be able to play and compete out on tour?
Yeah, I have, and I've been going to the gym, a lot more. It's I think a lot of people thought it was just kind of this fitness craze for a while, but as people kind of followed along with what Tiger was doing, they really found out that recovery and the golf swing and all the practice and standing around and those types of things really takes a toll on your body. I mean, because you're really making an unnatural kind of move, kind of keeping your hips level and not turning them so much and put a lot of strain on your back. So, I do look at my flexibility. I've done yoga, I've done Pilates. I would say I've been kind of lazy with that the last year or so. Now I've been in the gym, but there are definitely golf-specific exercises I like to do. I like to do a lot of plyometrics, jumping rope and things like that. A lot of the younger kids seem to really want to develop a lot of physique. I don't know if that's for golf or if that's for the guys that are single that are, out and about each and every week. I don't know, but just personal. I don't know, confidence. I don't know, but you can certainly see guys that have gotten too big. I mean, I look at Rory, and Rory was trending in that direction, I think. Tiger certainly got what I would say overdeveloped, and but I look at the success that he's had. Now he might be paying the price for it now, and we all make choices. But look, you go with the best guidance you have at the time, and you work out and you watch what you eat. Guys want to have long careers, and in order to have a long career, you gotta manage your body, and I think that's what the guys are doing so well right now.
Shaun, so let's switch gears a little bit. We talk about hitting a driver and what we're looking for there. From an irons perspective, when you're evaluating a set of irons, is the process any different for looking at what you're looking for in a driver in fairway woods to what you're looking for and how you're trying to figure out the feel and the distance from a set of irons?
Well, I used to really love blades. I still love the look of a classic blade with a very narrow sole, very thin top line, not a lot of bounce. But even though that looks good, they don't always perform the best for me anymore. Again, the balls have gotten so hard, and you got to create a lot more speed in order to get the spin on the ball. I still hit it in the middle of the club face, but my problem has come with the blades is I've not been able to get the ball up in the air quite so much with my slower swing speed. So you have to take some of those into consideration. What type of ball flight are you looking for, and how does the club look? Some companies have wider soles. There's more offset. There's thinner and thicker top lines. Everybody kind of has their thing when they look down at the club, what they like to see. And then, of course, you have the performance of the club with lower CGs, gets the ball up a little bit more. And then with the iron game, spin is your friend. So unlike the driver, and that's the one thing I think I've been frustrated with the golf balls about, is they design these drivers. When they test these drivers, I do know that they do use irons, but they put that iron by iron out there with a driver, and they try to optimize that ball for that driver. And then, of course, then they try to build a set of irons around that. And that doesn't always seem to work. I've always used the softest golf ball because I want spin. And I think that's where I go back to your irons. Spin is your friend with your irons. That's how you control the trajectory. That's how you control the distance, whether you want to move the ball left or right. So you have to have spin for those types of things. So if you're playing a harder golf ball, you need something that maybe just a little bit softer, maybe a little bit more offset to help get the ball up in the air. It looks better to some people. Blades sometimes have this onset look where it looks like there's no way you can get the ball up in the air. And those are the types of irons that I used to like. Now I realize that I can't quite. The ball doesn't come out when I hit it. My eyes don't look the same now as where I'm used to. When you hit, your eyes naturally go to where you're used to seeing the ball, and mine's usually up pretty high. And now I'm starting to see it come down just a little bit, which I don't like. So I'm kind of working on that right now. But there's so many different designs out there. Every year I get to the end of the year and I think, oh gee, what in the world can they design now? And
right.
New companies come along with new technologies. There's Parsons Golf, that PXG company that's selling sets for like $3,000 or $3,500 a set.
Wow.
Mike Nicolette from Ping is doing the design work on there. So there's a lot of new materials and stuff that people are using, and I think those are all great things. Again, you get some of the amateur players, they just think, I got to go get this set of blades, and they wonder why they can't hit them, even though they got the same setup, they got the same shafts, and everything else. So it's the golf ball, because you're not swinging at it hard enough now to generate the spin that you used to be able to with a softer ball. And again, I go back to me. I use the softest ball. Whatever company I'm with, I just always use the softest ball because I like the sound, I like the feel, and I like the spin.
So, Shaun, when you're kind of putting this whole package together, whether it's a whole set of clubs, ball that you've decided that you like that looks good to you, and are you evaluating clubs, in one session? We think about now for the average hacker like me, right? I'm going to go into the PGA Tour Superstore. I'm going to get into their simulator, and I'm going to try 2 or 3, however many drivers I may want to take a look at. The same for some irons that I'm going to hit in there. And typically the guy's going to go, okay, I like this one, I like that one. I'm going to put this set together, and boom, I'm at the checkout, standing out the door, and now I'm getting ready to go play around the golf. But do you evaluate? Is it a one session sort of thing? Do you give a couple of different things to try, put it in your bag, and maybe go out to your local club and play with it? Or how long does it take before you feel good about what you have and you're going to put that in your tournament bag?
No, well, I don't know. It depends on how badly you're hitting your other one, I guess. I've always been, kind of averse to change. To be honest with you, I've stuck with drivers. But, when the guys are out there on tour and they might be thinking that I want to try a new driver, again, if you're a TaylorMade guy, you're going to be hitting the TaylorMade driver. That's just going to be the requirements of your contract. If you're a Titleist guy, same thing. Very few guys have the flexibility to try different drivers. when you were younger, when I was younger, and there weren't as many golf companies that were making golf balls. You might have a Titleist ball shoe glove deal. You might have a TaylorMade iron bag and hat deal. You might use a few irons. You might use a different driver. So you could always experiment. But so for now, let's just pick one company. It doesn't matter. We'll call it Company X. And you go to Company X's bag. It's sitting out there, and you're looking for the right, head style. You're looking for the right loft. You take it into the truck, and you let Wade or whoever's doing it, Henry, build the club. And you got a shaft that you're comfortable with, and that's the biggest part is what shaft do you go to? I mean, do you want to try the same shaft that you've already got in your driver, which is usually what you want to do. You want to start with everything. If you're changing drivers, you want to put the exact same shaft in it that you've got, and at least compare it to that and see how it goes. It is really difficult. You hit a few balls after about 3 balls. If you're not hitting that one good, put it up. Because, eventually you'll learn how to hit it. And then once you start you start seeing one that feels good, that's got the flight that you like. Maybe you're hitting at the right height, but maybe it's got a little bit of left or right in it, or a little bit too much right to left in it. You could tweak that with the setup, with the weighting, whether it's a little bit more upright or a little bit flatter. I mean, there's so many ways to change the club. And then, once you feel like you got one or two on the range, you'll go out there and play. You might go out for a late practice round on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday and put it in play. And, if you're hitting it good and hitting it well, you might put it into play. You might just want to have a backup. You might want to just take it home, and since it's right there, you just put it in the bag, and if you're not playing next week, you'll take it home and play with it. Sometimes you don't have near as much pressure on you out there. You're not really worried about whether you're hitting fairways or anything like that. You just want to get the feel of the club. So it's different for tour players testing equipment on site than it is for the average player that doesn't have that, access to that, that quick ability to make adjustments on the fly. And, a little bit of research goes a long way. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there on the net that can kind of show you, if I do this to my driver, it's going to cause this. And so there's a lot of opportunities for people to kind of learn their equipment and get to know it really well. But, you just kind of go in there and buy your driver, and hopefully the person that's selling it to you is knowledgeable, and, you feel good about Most of them have return guarantees. If you're not hitting it well, you can take it back and try out another one. But it's a totally different process than for me as it is to someone that doesn't have access to the tour bands.
And you've talked about how adjustable today's drivers are in particular. TaylorMade does that, right? Where you've got all kinds of different settings and you can play around with it. Do you like that? Do you like that, the opportunity to be able to, tweak it, move it, adjust the weight front to center, side to side, that sort of thing? Or do you prefer a driver that is, more stationary and the adjustments come whether you're working with Scott Felix or some of the other guys to be able to maybe adjust the loft here or there, that sort of thing, but a more traditional kind of head?
Yeah, no, I like it more traditional. When you get a driver and it comes with a manual, it's probably too much for me. I had a difficult time in the beginning with the COG settings, is what they call it, the settings of the driver in Callaway. But I will say that I think Callaway has it absolutely right, because, I used rib grips for a long, long time. I've kind of finally given those up in the last couple of years. And it all was because, one was because Golf Pro quit making my grip that I used my entire career. Okay, but the other was that with the drivers, if I wanted to make an adjustment with them, it changed where the rib was on my grip. Callaway, at least to my knowledge, is the only company that you can change the settings on the driver without changing the shaft position. And that is incredible. And I'm surprised that a lot of these other companies haven't followed suit. TaylorMade's still the same way. If I want to change the setting on it, or the grip is turned, and even though I'm using round grips now, it still might put the grip logo, which I like up. I always like the grip logo up, and that's a lot of guys like to grip the logo down, but I like the logo up. So if you change it on some of these drivers, the majority of the drivers, if I use Golf Pride grips, so it turns it to the right or to the left, depending on if I weaken or whatever I do to the bottom. And I think Callaway has it absolutely right that they nailed it. And but once I find a setting, and I've used a driver for a little while and I'm comfortable with it, I don't ever change it. I never change the setting on it because I have that setting there for a reason. I'm not out there going to be in search of an extra 3 to 5 yards of distance by either taking loft off, which opens the face, or if I want more height, I can close the face a little bit, get another half degree aloft or 1 degree aloft. Sometimes it's a 1-for-1 ratio, but once it's set there, I never change it. And so then the problem comes if I change companies or if I change drivers, I've got to try to find that look again. And but you can find it. There's so many ways to change these clubs. But again, the bottoms with the heel to toe weighting and the front to back weighting, that stuff I don't like it because it takes me too long to try to figure out where it needs to go. And I just like an old traditional club where maybe I can adjust the loft and stuff like that. And it's too cumbersome. It just takes too long to try to figure all this stuff out. It's fun. I guess that's what it is. And it's I guess there is some benefit to it, but I'm not a big fan of it.
And you talked a lot about grip right there, and is that something that is sort of lost in this whole idea of adjustable head drivers and this shaft and this other thing that people don't pay enough attention to is the style and the thickness of the grip that can also greatly impact our ability to get to square the club head in our swing. Is that something that people don't pay enough attention to?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could go online and find all the grips, and most of the companies that are selling grips, have a kind of a sizing guide on really how to. And of course, YouTube's a great resource as well to to look up, kind of just how you want to find the right grip. People are different about them, like I usually like a little build up in my right hand on my wedges and stuff. I like to have the club. I like to have a couple more pieces of tape on my right hand for the wedges so it doesn't taper quite so much. Bubba Watson uses something like 12 pieces of tape or something in his left hand. And so, I don't know how he even gets his grip on, but there are jumbo grips for guys with big hands. So you have to be careful with, getting a grip that's too large or too small. You get too much or too less hand action depending on the size of the grip. But it's all important. I mean, your hands are connected to the club by what? The grip. And, you've got to find one that fits. And I said this a minute ago. I used the Green Victory, the Golf Pride Green Victory 60 rib. Well, I did use 58s a long time ago, and then I kind of wanted to go to a thinner grip, so I started using 60 ribs. And they quit making that about 4 or 5 years ago. And, Burton Christie at Golf Pride, I've had him on speed dial, and I know I drove him and the rest of the company nuts because I had different grips sent like every couple of weeks. And I always offered to pay for them. I always offered to have them to pay for shipping because that's how bad it got. When they stopped making, I couldn't get the cork. I don't know the whole story. If they just quit using the cork, if it got too expensive, or they quit using the cork for golf grips, I don't know. But they quit making the grip that I liked, and it was me. And I can think of like Mark Brooks and Vance Veazey, who doesn't play anymore but lives here in Memphis. He played for a few years on tour, and a few other guys. Maybe Bernard Langer used it. So I went in search of these grips, and really when the adjustable drivers came out, that's when I started thinking about going to round grips, and which I ultimately did. But even now, I got 2 new sets of irons last week, and I had them put on a brand new grip that I've never used before. It feels pretty good. So I'm kind of always in this constant state of flux with my grips, and it's really too bad. Because I tell you, if they ever went back to that Golf Pride grip that I the Green Victory, I would use it, and so I've kind of struggled with that. But that's maybe more mental than anything else. But when you use something your whole life, it's you kind of get used to it. So
yeah.
But yeah, grips, grip size, grip textures. Are all important, and they're all kind of individual. And I like a kind of a soft. I'd use cord for a while, like a real soft cord. Some guys use the harder cord. I think Tom Raymond uses the harder cord. But it's definitely personal preference. And again, there's no shortage of choices out there either. Companies.
Yeah, I just want to expand on the idea that you said a moment ago. Tape on the hands. What? I mean, are we talking athletic tape that you're putting around your fingers or around your glove, or what does that mean?
No, I mean, so when you put a grip on, there are grips though that you can put on with just solvent, or you can just use starter tape. Most grips, like I put on, I usually just put one full piece of double-sided kind of tape, grip tape underneath, like we all do. But Bubba puts 12 wraps on his shaft, and then he puts the grip over it. So he builds his grip up. I don't know what that is, and I'm probably 1/16 under standard or something like that. And anyway, he's way over standard size grips. So he uses a really large grip and then puts a lot of tape underneath it to build it up. He likes the feeling of a thick grip in his hand. Nick Price uses 62s, 0.62 diameter. And that's probably the smallest grip that you can probably get. He just liked the feel, and Nick's got pretty good sized hands, and he just likes the feel of being able to wrap his hands around the whole grip. Ideally the size would be if you held the grip in your left hand and you held it vertically out in front of you, that your fingertips, like your ring finger, would just touch, the other part of the fatty part of your hand as you put your hand around the grip. If it's too big and your fingers, you can't get your fingers to touch the fatty part of your left hand, it's too big. If they dig right into it, it's too thin. So that's kind of an easy way to kind of figure all that out. But yeah, tape, what I was referring to, is just a double-sided masking tape that goes underneath the grip, and then the grip adheres to it with a little bit of solvent. And I would say most guys use 58s. Most guys use 0.58, and that's the grip diameter. And I use 0.60s round. And I was a rib grip the whole time. But there's a lot of different variations. Bernard Langer, I think he uses by 60 ribs, but he turns his ribs to a certain way to fit his strong grip. Mark Brooks does the same thing, where they don't have the grip straight up and down. They have the rib turned on the one side of the grip so that they can get their fingers and get it going through their knuckles, and it feels right. So it's just a lot of quirkiness, the things you find out through trial and error and through years and years of playing and practice.
And for folks that aren't as familiar with what you're talking about, what do you mean by ribs?
Well, okay, the rib. Okay, everybody just a typical round grip. It's just that. It's just round. But in a ribbed grip, there's I don't know what they use to make it ribbed. I don't know if it's just the way it's designed or if they actually have something in there. But it goes at the very bottom of the grip, and it fits, kind of in your fingers. So it's on the underneath side of the grip, and it's a little ridge that just runs from the bottom to the top of the grip. And most guys like that rib straight up and down. It just, I don't know, it just feels better in your left hand, I think, when you have a rib. Ben Hogan apparently used to stick coat hanger wire down the back of his grips to make the rib as big as he could to fit into his fingers. Now, the USGA has limits on the size of a rib that you can have. I do believe, that the Golf Pride kind of Tour Velvet has kind of the most prominent rib, if you will, and rib, and in a grip. And I think they could have been grandfathered in to their sizing, but they probably have the most prominent rib in their grip. And if you pick one up, if you pick a rib grip up with a round grip, you would know the difference. You feel it right away. But for people that might be struggling, they don't really know that much about it, maybe pick up a rib grip. I would assume that most of the people that are building clubs keep a few ribs on hand, but most people like round because they're easy to get on. You don't have to line them up quite so much, when you're putting them on. When you put a rib grip on, you have to get it on straight, and you got to make sure that when you push the grip on, that you don't have the top edge of the rib going one direction and the bottom going the bottom. You have to make sure that grip goes on dead straight, and that the rib is straight, the spine is straight up and down the backside of the shaft. And I think a lot of people, when they're building clubs, it takes a couple extra seconds to evaluate it, but you're building set after set after set, that adds up to time. So I think most companies and most businesses just use round grips.
Right.
Because you just put it on, it's round. So it doesn't matter if the Golf Pride or whatever grip you're using is a little bit off to one side or the other. Most people don't pick up on that, but you certainly would if you had a rib grip. So
right.
If people are kind of getting tired of the feel of their grips and they're like, I want to try something different, whether you use a rib or you want to try a round, I recommend it. Why not? Like I said, the feeling of the rib, it feels really good and secure when it goes right up to fingertips, your knuckles, your left hand. It just feels like it's easier to maintain. So it's taken me some time to kind of get away from the ribbing, but I've kind of made the adjustment, but it's taken me a few years to get used to it.
Shaun, let's move on to wedges. And, Phil Mickelson, you've talked about Callaway's. He's worked with Callaway on their Mac Daddy series and their wedges. And, Phil has, added a little extra, to the toe of the club to kind of keep the ball on the face just that little bit longer to create a little bit extra spin. Is that something that it's a new look, and it's certainly, as soon as you pick up one of those wedges, it sticks out to you. Is that something that you've looked at or given a shot to?
Yeah, no, I have some. I don't like them at all. I have a shape that I like, and that's not it. So again, I did when we were playing here in Memphis at the FedEx St. Jude Classic here. They had brought those out, and I went out on the practice green, and it spun a lot more, but I couldn't get it. It just didn't have a very good bottom for me, and I just didn't like the shape. I think around the greens and stuff it would have been okay, but I didn't like to look at it from fairway shots, and I just didn't like it. I don't know where Phil came up with that crazy design, but it just doesn't look good to me at all. It's just kind of an alien shape to it. I'm more of a traditionalist. I used Cleveland Golf, their wedges for a long, long time, and kind of got used to a certain look. I like a little bit more rounded. And the funny thing is, I used to like a straight-edged, the old Cleveland 588 wedge. I used to love the straight leading edge, and now I've kind of gotten where I like a little bit more rounded leading edge. Not too much, but I'm still more of a traditionalist in that way in the shape. So, I think there is something in what Phil came up with. He uses it incredibly well. It doesn't matter if you gave him a spoon with some grooves in it, he'd figure out a way to to get it up and down. A lot of that just comes with the feel and just incredible imagination that he has. But I think the club is designed, and I think it is designed well. I just don't like the look of it, and that's kind of been the theme for me today is the look.
Right.
But I didn't like the bottom. I don't like a lot of bounce on my wedges either. I like to use 4 to 5, maybe 6 degrees of bounce on my lob wedge. I just don't like a whole lot of bounce, particularly the way that the golf courses have been set up. If you think back to the U.S. Open, when was the last time that you saw a U.S. Open that had deep rough, like right next to the green? I guess we did at Pebble Beach in 2010. But if you think about all the U.S. Opens and a lot of the major championships that you're seeing on TV now, there's runoff areas. There's a lot of shaved areas. The ball is funnel off. And so, you need a lot less bounce if you're going to play golf courses like that, because the lies are so tight. So you don't want any bounce. You don't want to be bouncing into the ball. Whereas you play in a deeper surface and a little more grass, a little heavier sand, you need more bounce. So again, that's what's great about having the opportunity to use have these equipment trucks out there each and every week. And again, it doesn't take long to figure it out. If somebody uses high bounce, like I'm going to try a low bounce this week, take it out for a day or so, and you should be able to figure it out. But that's just because the guys are so good out there, and with their feel, they can kind of change on the fly. But there's a lot of crazy designs out there, and Phil certainly came up with one.
And Shaun, we've talked a little bit about the golf ball in this session, and we've talked about it a little bit in the past, and how the ball flies much straighter today than it ever has. So for hackers like me, going out there and getting a straight ball, boy, that's perfect. Less side spin, whether it's you slice it or you hook it or whatever. Less spin that way, great. For guys like you at the top of the game, you want to be able to work the ball a little bit, whether it's right to left or left to right. Talk about now the bigger struggle with trying to, depending on, the shape of the golf hole that you're trying or the shot that you need to hit, that how much more challenging it is to get the ball to move whichever direction you want it to move.
I certainly, when I'm out there in the fairway, I certainly have a lot of kind of visual things, for pin locations and the balls of the old. And I hate for all these young people that are listening to me, I kind of sound like I'm 100 years old, but that is really how quickly technology has changed. And the old balls, the tour balatas and the really soft balls, you could stand out there in the middle of the fairway and you could aim it at the middle and you could hit a punch draw into the left pin, a nice high or punch cut into the right pin and get it spinning towards the flag and stuff like that, and you just can't do that anymore. It just seems like it takes so much more effort to be able to do that. Bubba Watson is incredible that he's able to move the ball as much as he does, but, he's strong, he's got a lot of speed, he's got good hand-eye coordination, and he understands what he needs to do to get that ball to move a certain way. For the most part, the majority of the tour doesn't do that or doesn't have those same abilities, so they're kind of stuck with one shot. They're very one-dimensional. And that also works for knockdown shots. I grew up, if I had 150 yards into a flag that was kind of a bunker in front, or I needed to carry a lake and I'm into a 15, 20-mile-an-hour wind, I was told to keep it low, to drive it low and kind of hit a knockdown. I might take a 7-iron as opposed to an 8 and just kind of finesse it in there. Now you don't see those guys doing that. Why? Because the ball doesn't respond. The ball doesn't spin as much. So you have to get the ball. You have to get the ball airborne to keep it in the air. Again, why I use the softest ball that a company makes, and it's just a very one-dimensional. It's an aerial game now, and that's okay. I mean, that's what these kids are playing. That's not what I grew up playing. There was certainly a time and place to hit the ball up in the air, and it got to the point where any time I was set up over the ball and I felt wind on my cheek, my left cheek, it was probably going to be a knockdown. It could be as insignificant as 5 miles an hour. I was probably going to hit kind of a punch shot just because it was easier to control. And now, not so much. So, that's just the style of the game today. I don't really care for it because I still see these balls kind of coming out and working in towards the flag, and I'm not able to do that anymore. And it's difficult when you're out there in the middle of the fairway to aim at a tucked pin on the left and just kind of fire at it and know that the ball is going to go straight. I've certainly done that. I just don't like it. I grew up learning to work the ball, and I guess that's why I don't like the way the technology's gone, and that's okay. My career's, I'm kind of on the backside of it anyway. So, but you hear a lot of that about the one-dimensional player, and that's what most of these kids are.
And Shaun, you talk about, using the softest ball possible. With so many brands and sub-brands of golf balls, how do you go about deciding which one is right for you?
Sound is a huge part of it for me. If it's real clicky, I'm not going to hit that. It's typically going to be your harder ball. I've only used 3 different balls probably in my entire career that I've of elite golf, and I'll say kind of post high school and all that. I've used Titleist ball the majority of my career. I've used TaylorMade. I've used Callaway, and new balls get pushed on you. I remember in 2010 I played very well with a company's ball, and then was told at the end of that year that they were not going to make that ball, that they had a few extras, and if I wanted to travel with them, I could, but they weren't going to be having those balls on site anymore, which didn't make it really practical. If I'm playing 2 or 3 straight weeks, I mean, I want to carry like 12, 13 dozen balls, in my suitcase and stuff. So I was kind of left kind of trying to find something. So the first thing I did is I tried the spinniest of the tour quality balls, and it felt okay. Felt a little rubbery, and so I tried another ball, and it felt okay. It didn't sound great, but it had the spin that I wanted, and I kind of went back and forth in 2011 with that particular ball. But I was disappointed. I remember, learning that I wasn't going to be able to. No, I wasn't like I wasn't able to use it. I mean, I could have carried the balls around, but it just wasn't practical. I mean, it just really wasn't. So I kind of read the writing on the wall that it was kind of to transition into something new, and those are frustrating things when that happens. But I mean, there are guys today that are still using, some Titleist guys that are still using the ball that was made in 07, the 07X ball, the 08X ball. I mean, so they're still making them for certain players, but it's difficult to make that transition. The golf ball and the driver are probably the 2 biggest changes that you can make within your equipment.
And Shaun, you've shared this story a couple of times in the past about Ernie Els, and Ernie like to get, if he makes a birdie, he's getting rid of the ball because he only thinks there's one birdie in every ball.
Yeah.
But for you, when we hear, I mean, for a guy like me, I'm trying to play the entire round with one golf ball because that means I didn't lose it. I got the same ball. I must be playing well. My superstition is I'm playing that entire round with that golf ball. I don't care what happens. But for guys like you, with the higher swing speeds and the peers that you play with, and balls getting out around and all of that sort of thing, separate myth from reality. What are you trying to do? Yeah. How often are you going to use a golf ball? How many holes before you feel like I need to swap out this ball for a new one?
Hey, you know what? If I've played around with 3 balls, I've probably had a pretty good round. And the balls do not change like they used to. Used to you hit you hit a sand wedge on the first hole, or a 9-iron or a wedge or whatever, and you hit down on it real hard, you were done with it. It was done. I don't care whether you wanted to keep using it or not. It was shredded. And as the technology started to evolve with the Pro V1 and that ball started, it tore up just a little bit. The covers are making all the difference. They're very durable. Unless you hit it into the trees and you get some bark, you get a scuff mark from a cart path or something like that. Balls do seem to get discolored a little bit easier. That's probably the one thing they lose their brightness the more that you use them. But as far as the technology, I think it'd be interesting to study to see if people would test balls from the beginning of a round to the end of a round and then put them on a machine to see how they respond, because I would say that they would be pretty much spot on. Again, I think the only changes are going to be aesthetic ones, and of course, hitting a cart path and putting a scuff mark on it. But for the most part, the balls will hold up.
Shaun, just a couple more before we let you go. We'll switch gears a little bit over to the football side. I know you went down and supported the University of Memphis down in the Birmingham Bowl. We learned in the last couple of days that Paxton Lynch is signed with our good friend on the football side, Lee Steinberg, and is going to forego his senior year and go into the draft. Curious to get your thoughts on what you've seen this year from Paxton Lynch, and what the NFL, because the University of Memphis traditionally hasn't been, a program that's been in the football spotlight. They've certainly been in the basketball one off and on over the decades. But now, for a guy that maybe not everybody is familiar with, what can we look forward to seeing from Paxton Lynch, do you think, in the NFL?
Well, I tell you what, the coaching quarterback, combination this year was fun to watch. It was so exciting to go to these Memphis games. My wife's grandfather bought tickets in 1965 when the Liberty Bowl first opened, and he's had tickets, and we've had Memphis tickets for decades. And so I've sat through a lot of games where it was just run, pass, punt. And with Justin Fuente and having Paxton as a quarterback, what they brought to an entertainment value for us, it was outstanding. And the kid's got good size. I've never met him, just certainly watched him, and I know nothing about playing football at a high level, but just watching him make the throws across the field and has enough ball speed to get the ball to these receivers on these long throws. Of course, it helps that he's 6'7" too, but he had one turnover, at least one interception in the Birmingham Bowl. He may have had two, but I would say he had less than 5 or 6 interceptions the whole year. So it was just fun to watch. I'm happy for him. I was disappointed that Coach Fuente left, Memphis without coaching the bowl game, considering Frank Beamer was still going to be coaching the bowl game. We saw with Alabama that Kirby Smart, even though he's going to be the Georgia coach, has decided to stay on. And so those people that are talking about, they do it for recruiting, I think that's a bunch of BS.
Right.
I think they do it because they just want to get out of town, and I know they want to get a fresh start on their program. But when it's announced that a top level coach is leaving, all the recruits that they've been meeting with, they know who's going and what style of offense they run, whether they're defensive minded. But as far as Paxton, it's exciting for him. I know it's got to be exciting for his family. I think he's going to succeed. He seems to be a very bright kid, and and you can see that with his football acumen. He didn't force a lot of throws this year. He had some pretty good receivers that made some good catches. There were a couple games that were disappointing, and certainly the Birmingham Bowl was disappointing because just the conditions were wet. And they were kind of a run and gun, kind of a fast-paced run every once in a while, throw it down the field. And I think with the conditions the way they were, and look, Auburn's a pretty good football team, whether they were successful in the SEC or not, but they made us look pretty bad. It was pretty disappointing, but he's going to do very well. So my family's in bowl mood, as you probably saw on Facebook or Twitter. We went to the Birmingham Bowl. We're going to the AutoZone Liberty Bowl today. So, we're kind of football fanatics around here, especially, my wife's an LSU Tiger alum. So
right.
we got the SEC, and I'm an IU guy. So we got robbed in our bowl game. That field goal was good against Duke. So, anyway, but I'm still I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the program. I think this new coach is coming in. Mike Norville is going to have a nice high up tempo offense, which the fans really embraced and really love. It's fun to watch that style of football. We love to see points. I mean, I do appreciate a good defensive battle, but it's much like the collegiate basketball. What are they trying to do? They want to speed the game up. So it's now a 30-second shot clock. It's all offense driven. They want to see points, and the same holds true for football.
Right.
So it's fun, and it's fun when you see different plays. You see trick plays, you see spread offenses, it's fun to watch.
And like you say, you're going to the Liberty Bowl to continue to support all the sports there in the city of Memphis. It's later this afternoon. K-State goes against Arkansas. So
yep.
Is it going to be SEC? Are you rooting for Arkansas to stay SEC loyal for your wife?
I suppose. I tell you what, the SEC has put a beating on the schools this year. They look what Ole Miss did last night.
Right.
What Alabama did to my Big Ten. it's been pretty unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish, in the bowl season. But I suppose I don't know what side of the field. I think we're going to be on the Arkansas side. So you're pretty safe to make sure that you kind of root for the people whose side you're sitting. even if you quietly want the other people, there's enough crazies out there. You don't want to get involved in some sort of brawl on the 50th row out there. But I suppose we'll support Arkansas and the SEC. And again, I love taking my kids to these bowl games. It's a great experience. It's certainly great on TV, but there's nothing like sitting around a bunch of fans from different places that just enjoy college football. It's fun.
There you go. Shaun, before we let you go, and you alluded to this a moment ago, but remind our listeners how they can follow you online and over social media.
Yeah, I'm Twitter, so I'm at Shaun Micheel PGA, and Shaun Micheel on Facebook. You'll probably see a few pictures of me and my kids out there at AutoZone at the AutoZone game today. So check it out. But that's where you can find me. And I'm more of a reader, as I've said many times in this show. I'm more of a reader of social media. I'm not always quick to make too many comments. There's a lot of things I'd love to say, and I don't post a lot of things that I have typed out there just for obvious reasons. I like to kind of think before I hit send.
Right.
But it is kind of fun to see some of the comments. I mean, some of them are great, some of them are pretty mean-spirited, but I guess just all part of the fun, I guess.
Indeed. Well, Shaun, thank you for spending so much time with us to kick off 2016. Again, Happy New Year to you and your family. Happy birthday a couple of days early. Hope you have a great birthday on the 5th, and we certainly look forward to tracking your success and having you share more of your stories and insights with us over the course of 2016.
Well, Chris, I certainly hope so. I wish everybody Happy New Year as well, and hopefully, as we get along into the season and more of this stuff that we're doing together, that I'll have a little bit more to report on life as a tour pro as opposed to life as being a stay-at-home dad. So I love that part of it, but the golf part is still ringing through. So hopefully, I'll have a little bit more to report this year on the competition side.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to that. We're rooting hard for you. We know, something is telling me, and I said this back in the fall, but something's telling me 2016 is going to be a special year for you, and we are privileged to be able to take part of the ride with you as your schedule sees fit. But we wish you much success. We know that 2016 is going to be something that we're going to enjoy. Hopefully, getting to share with you as often as we're able to.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so I'm wishing a safe and happy New Year to all the men and women in our military. We appreciate all that you're doing for us.
Thank you very much for adding that in. Shaun, take care. Enjoy the Liberty Bowl later today. We look forward to hopefully catching up with you again real soon.
Thank you, Chris. You too. Okay.
All right. Take care. That's 2003 PGA champion Shaun Micheel, and I tell you, kind of walking through the bag, if you will, going from the driver and talking about the fairway metals and iron play and wedges and golf balls and getting to understand the grip, which I think is a very unsung thing that enough people don't pay much attention to, but how important that is. So and learned about the rib today. So that's great stuff. So be sure to check out Shaun here on the show. He's been a regular guest with us, and I think he's going to continue to be throughout 2016. So please continue to join us and send us your questions. You got something you want Shaun Micheel to respond to? Please, go on our Facebook page, Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, or find me on Twitter at CTMascaro and send me a question. We'll make sure we get Shaun to answer it for you here on the air. All right, folks, it's about time for me to put a bow on this episode. Before we close up shop, I want to remind you about our good friend and partner over at the Salute Military Golf Association, PGA Tour Pro Jim Estes. And Jim has been a great guest on the show, and he's talked to us about the Salute Military Golf Association. I want you to continue to check him out on smga.org, and let's listen to a word from Jim about it.
The Salute Military Golf Association was created to provide rehabilitative golf experiences to the brave men and women who have been wounded while serving our country. Hi, I'm Jim Estes, PGA Golf Pro and co-founder of the Salute Military Golf Association. With my adaptive golf program, we've successfully helped thousands of soldiers in their recovery, both mentally and physically. The SMGA has been providing family-inclusive golf experiences across the country since 2007. To date, the SMGA has equipped more than 1,000 warriors with properly fitted golf clubs and has extended its clinic series to more than 8 chapter and affiliate locations across the U.S. If you are a wounded veteran interested in participating, or if you'd like to learn more about the Salute Military Golf Association and find a chapter closest to you, visit our website at smga.org. We've seen firsthand how impactful golf can be in aiding one's recovery. The Salute Military Golf Association, empowering wounded veterans one fairway at a time. Visit smga.org. That's smga.org.
Yeah, they're doing some amazing things there at the Salute Military Golf Association. Please go online, find out more information at smga.org, and see how you can get involved. All right, everybody, my sincere thanks to Shaun Micheel for joining me today and making today's show so much fun and so informative for me. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Please also, you heard me talk a little bit about Lee Steinberg earlier, about a friend of ours on the football side on Thursday Night Tailgate. Well, please check out that sister show with me and my co-host Bob Lazari, our announcer Joe LaGenusa. That show airs live every Thursday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can stream it live on Blog Talk Radio as well as the Armed Forces Radio Network as well. Plus, you can also find us, this show and that show, available on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, SoundCloud, Audio Boom, Podbean. We're all over the internet. Great places for you to find us. So please check us out and take us along with you. Let us bring some fun to your commutes, or when you're hanging around the house, or someone's dragging you to the grocery store or to the mall. Please, you can stream us whichever one of those sites is most convenient for you. On Thursday Night Tailgate every week, we are joined by legends and stars from around the NFL and the CFL as well. Please also check out both shows on Facebook. Give us a like. That's important to us as well. And you can find either show online, nextonthetee.net or ThursdayNightTailgate.com. And from there, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free and keep up to date with who our future guests are going to be. Folks, thank you again for choosing to listen to this show today. We really appreciate it. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
You've been listening to Next on the Tee with Chris-Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA legends, pros and top instructors, and media members go to tell their stories. Join us the same time every Saturday to hear more stories about the game we love, from the people who love sharing those stories with you. It's all about the great game of golf. It's all about the great game of golf.